Okay, grade 11s. What we're gonna make today is some yeast bread. It's gonna be more of a sweet yeast dough. Some may say a brioche dough. This is going to be a kind of multi-purpose dough, you could say, for braided breads, or you could use for sticky buns, like a soft cinnamon roll, or you could use for a Danish. Okay, so multi-purpose kind of bread. It's a bit more on the sweet side, but still a yeast dough. Some of your main ingredients. Okay, we've got, of course, first our yeast. This is the only one I could find at the grocery store currently, so you might have some trouble. I don't know. You might have to wait to do this lab if you can't find these ingredients, but this is just pizza yeast. No difference really, it's just the way it's advertised, but we're going to dissolve this in some warm water. Some flour, okay, you can use white flour, whole wheat flour. This recipe is not going to work with gluten-free, but I could try and attach a gluten-free option. You're going to need some sort of sweetener, white sugar, or you could use a honey or maple syrup for a bit healthier option, but you're going to need some sort of sugar for your yeast to start eating and creating some gas. That's going to make your bread rise. Probably need some salt for a balance of flavoring. Again, I don't have out right here, but you might need some oil. That's just going to make your dough a bit more tender. I'd get a extra light olive oil, or you could use a canola oil. You could use butter as well as a fat. Any liquid fat for this recipe is fine, okay? Your choice. Need some measuring tools. I don't know if you have all of your measuring cups at home. Hopefully you do, or a scale or something. Measuring spoons as well. If you don't have measuring spoons, you can get away with using just your soup spoon and your dessert spoon. Okay, your smaller one for a teaspoon, your larger one for a tablespoon. All right. Remember, your teaspoon is smaller. Anyway, some sort of mixing bowl, some sort of stirring utensil. Could be a rubber spatula. A rubber spatula is great for this. So I looked at my recipe. I'm making from the Fleischmann's Red World website, which is really good. I've used their recipes for years. I'm going to give you a couple different options that you can make with different yeast doughs, sweet yeast doughs for Easter time. But I looked at my Easter braided bread and some additional ingredients they did call for. Of course, some sort of fat, butter or oil. Okay, it's going to be melted or liquid form. Some sort of milk. You can use water in place as well. You can use almond milk, soy milk, cow's milk. Okay, it's got to be a liquid though. They call for orange zest. I don't have any oranges. I'm going to use lemon. Plus, I do prefer lemon flavor over orange, so I'm going to do that for my glaze. And my zest, I'm going to wash my lemon first before I zest off the rind. And you don't want to go as far down to where it's white. That's called the pith. That's the more bitter part. So you only want to take off the colored part for that, okay? So I've gone ahead and emptied one package of yeast into my bowl. I'm going to pick up with the recipe. Follow along if you like. Okay, so I have my yeast, flour, and sugar in my mixing bowl. I'm about to zest some lemon zest using my box grater and add that to the dry ingredients. And then I've heated up my milk, my water, and some olive oil in the microwave. You can do that on the stove top as well, or you can microwave it in a microwave safe dish. Again, olive oil is going to have a bit more of a distinct flavor. You can use extra light flavored olive oil or a butter, whatever's your choice. I'm going to add that all to the bowl, and the recipe does get you to start with just part of the flour, I believe it. Okay, I've mixed in my wet ingredients, my lemon zest. Again, I didn't use the zester side, I used the fine peeling side. find that works a lot better. And I have 1.5 cups of flour in here. That's what I began with. Now the recipe says add in enough remaining flour to make a soft dough. So you don't want a sticky dough, but the minimum amount of flour you're going to use is 3.5 cups and the maximum is 4. So just depending on how the mixing goes, you may end up using just another 2 more cups of flour, or another 2.5 cups of flour. Okay, so to this I'm going to add 1 egg, and I'm going to start with 2 more cups of flour. Okay, so that will be 3.5 cups of flour. I am not going to use any almonds. I could, if I had them, I might use some dried cranberries, but I'm just going to keep this very lemony for this recipe. Okay, so this is what my dough looks like. I've just dropped it out of my bowl. Don't worry about getting every last bit of dough. I put some flour aside for kneading, a little bit of flour on the countertop, and I'm going to knead my dough for a number of minutes to develop the gluten so the bread will get nice and fluffy. And okay, so I'm going to sprinkle my dough so that the dough doesn't stick to my hand, and I'm going to be stretching it out and folding it over itself, rotating, stretching it out and folding it over itself. So I've been kneading this for close to 5 minutes. I used most of the flour in my measuring cup. Anytime it started to stick to my hands, I sprinkled some flour so I don't end up with a big mess. Again, I'm stretching it out, folding it over itself, stretching it out, folding it over itself, and it's becoming fairly smooth, and it's not breaking when I stretch it out to knead it, so I know that it's getting close to being ready. If you had an electric mixer at home, you can certainly pop this into your KitchenAid mixer, your electric mixer. But we're doing it from hand today. Okay, so again, get a good little sweat doing this, stretching it out, folding it over itself. Okay. When you are done, which I'd say I'm pretty close to being done, I am just tucking all my dough underneath itself, making it into a smooth kind of ball, and I'm kind of rolling it around on itself on the counter. So it's getting to be a pretty nice smooth ball. Okay, get all those ends tucked under. Okay, I'm going to pop this into a clean bowl that's been greased all around, and the recipe suggests letting it rise for about 10 minutes. 30 minutes is fine too. Some are warm. If your oven has a warm setting, which many do, you can put it in a warm oven or on your stove top, on top of your oven, in the sun, with a dishcloth or a piece of plastic wrap over your bowl, and let it sit for 10 to 30 minutes. Then you're going to follow the rest of the instructions to roll out your dough and form it into the loaf. I ended up using 3.5 cups of flour, and I ended up using pretty much the other half, which equals the total 4 cups of flour, while rolling and kneading the dough out, basically. I mean kneading it, not rolling it. Anyway, so pretty much used all the flour in this recipe. Put this guy in a bowl with some oil, let it rest, then we're... Okay, clean bowl, barking dog, it's very excited. Good drizzle of oil or butter. Okay, take our dough, sat there for a little while, it's a little sticky. Gonna roll it around, coat it well with oil. Okay, there we go. Put a cloth over it. And I do have a warm setting on my oven, so I'm going to use that and pop it in there for 10 minutes. We're back. Better than ever. Okay, our dough has risen a bit. Mind you, it's only been in a warm setting for about 10 minutes. You're going to see a lot more rising the second fermentation. Once the dough has formed and you let it rise, that's going to be like a 30-minute rise. This is actually not much of a braid, but a twist, this bread. So you only make 2 strands. Between those strands, like I mentioned before, I am going to put a lemon preserve. This is a lemon ginger marmalade or jam from PEI, Prince Edward Island. Okay, got my bread out of the bowl. Okay, if it's gonna be sticky, you might need some more flour. I'm gonna just kind of deflate it a little bit. I'm gonna cut it in half. Don't maybe want to count on your parents' counter. Get a cutting board if you want. Okay, cut this dough in half because we're making 2 strands. If you have a bench cutter, do that. Okay, we're making 2 strands here. Don't put flour on your counter or else your strands will just kind of flip-flop back and forth. I want it to be somewhat tacky, okay? And we're rolling from the center out, just like so. Okay, there's 1 strand. I think your recipe tells you how long of a strand you want to make, but I would say about, I think we're making it about 25 inches long or so. 2 strands, okay, about the same length. They look like so, they're kind of sticking together. I'm gonna put the preserve throughout the center. I'm gonna give them a nice twist and bring the ends together. We're gonna have a lemon twist ring. It's gonna taste so good. Okay, we're gonna let that rise, bake it, and then put a glaze on it while it's still hot. Oh my goodness, it's gonna smell good. It's gonna smell so good. Okay, we got our lemon preserve down the center. Well, actually it's a lemon ginger preserve. Now I'm going to twist it up. Okay, this is a messy part. Bring it together in a ring. And I'm gonna probably put it on a parchment lined round pizza pan. Okay, here we go. Twisted on a pizza pan lined with parchment paper. If you don't have parchment paper, you can use a grease pan or grease tin foil. Okay, twisted. Again, I have some preserves throughout the center. In the meantime, I'm going to make my lemon glaze. So I'm gonna cut my lemon in half. You might have a juicer at home, or you might just use your palm, your hand to squeeze your lemon through your hand just to kind of catch any seeds. Okay, so I just took this guy out, doubled in size for sure. Nice and puffy. You don't want to slam it down or poke it, it will deflate. Preheating my oven to 350, and this is going to bake as per the recipe. Does suggest that you give it an egg wash, so it's just egg and water brushed on. I think I will do that. Okay, got my egg wash, and I am going to very lightly brush that, very gently brush that on this bread and bake it for roughly 30 minutes. Okay, every oven is different though, so check it a bit before. With egg wash, I'm going to pop it in the oven. Okay, that was in there for 25 minutes. Got our glaze, it's supposed to go on right away. It's still on the parchment paper. We're just going to brush that all over. And that's gotten a lot darker and has a bit of a sheen because of the egg wash. You can see where places where I got a bit lazy and didn't put the egg wash on everywhere. That's okay. It's also going to get quite a sheen from this glaze, just adding to the aesthetic appeal of eating, right? What it looks like. This is definitely going to sweeten it up as well. We'll let that soak in there. This bread, definitely, because it's got some fat in it, it has some sugar in it, this bread will keep for a few days. You can slice it up and toast it. You can rip or tear pieces off. Nice for a centerpiece. Again, they did suggest placing little hollowed out eggs throughout the bread for decoration, but I like it more like this for myself. Enjoy.